Hi guys, welcome back to part 2 of this video. The topic of the video is about using a database such as Airtable to keep track of your collecting hobby or habit. The number one goal is to control your expenses, and then also gives you a lot of insights on being a collector yourself and the collection, meaning what to do from this point on after you collected all these insights. In part 1, we talk about how to set up the database in Airtable. So now we're ready to populate it. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to do some of the fields. And let's get to it. So here I have an example of my watch collection for the purpose of illustrating how to populate this database. The first thing would be the asset tag. So in part 1, I kind of talk about the asset tag is actually the ID of each record. By record, I mean for each row. And it has to be unique. So one item would have one unique ID. Here's how I name it. Of course, you could just easily put in like a 5-digit and then count from 1 to 99999, right? It's okay if you do that, but it's better that if you put in some coding inside the ID. When you look at the string, you would immediately know what it is, and perhaps some extra information as well. So here I would put WCH as in watch for the ID. And why do I do that? Because there are some instances like this over here. I was buying a strap for the watch, which is really an accessory. It's not a watch, but I would also like to put that into the database so I could keep track on the accessories I bought and also how much money I used. So for watch, I would have WCH and accessories, ACC. And if you have anything else in mind that you want to put in, feel free to do that. So the next 4 digits, I would like to put the year normally. And 4-digit is better than 2-digit because when I want to do the filter right here, later on, I can just punch in, say, 2010, 2015, and all the watches I purchased from that year would have 2000, in this case, 2021 in it. And I would have a list just for the watches that I bought from that year. I thought that is quite useful. And also the next 2 digits would be the month that I purchased the watch. It is also important for me because I would like to see, even though from the date I could see that, but also from the ID, I would like to see how many watches I bought within a particular month. And then the last 3 digits are just the unique number I gave to each watch. You could do that for 1 year, meaning in January, the first watch I bought would be 001, and then I'm counting that all the way up to December. I could do that. Or I could reset that after each month, meaning 001 for July. And then when it comes to August, I would reset that to 001 again. So in a way, I could just by staring at this column and look at the numbers, I could tell, okay, in this case, the last watch I bought was 07006. That means I bought 6 watches in that month, right? So I find that useful. And if you find it useful, you're more than welcome to use this format as well. And on the next field is the description. I tend to keep that kind of straightforward and simple. I would normally just put the brand, the model name, or the nickname I gave to this watch. Simple color description, because sometimes I have a tendency to buy the same model but in different color. So I could quickly tell if, say, black and versus blue, then I know it's the same watch, but I just bought it in different color. And then usually I'll also insert the model number. Just in case I have to look for information about this watch online or ask the service center some questions, I could easily give them the model number and they know exactly what watch I was talking about. So this is also handy. The next column, the next field would be photo. I call it photo, but it's actually attachment. And I could attach, let me just expand this. I could attach like a photo of the watch. And you can see I could do more than one attachment. So what else would I do? I can also attach the receipts, for example, of the watch. And also maybe a warranty card, scan and then put it on there as well. But I would strongly advise if you put stuff like that, since this is online, I would blur out some sensitive information, such as like maybe even my full name, my even it's like a partial credit card number, I would blur that as well. And the serial number of the watch, I would probably put that in a separate record offline somewhere, and I'll blur that as well. The purchase price and everything else, I think it's okay. And this is not for official warranty work anyway. It's just for the convenience of being able to quickly pull up something and look at it. So it's perfectly fine if you blur out those sensitive information. So I have pictures of the watches, other documents I want to attach, I can put it there. Location over here, I talked about that before. It could be the current location of the watch. Let's say I have this watch in the apartment, or I have this watch in a safe somewhere, or I have this watch in somewhere else. So it's up to you. You could do that, or you could also put down like the location you purchased the watch. Such as I was on a trip, I went to Japan, or I went to London and I purchased a watch over there. So the location would be that. Just a little reminder, if you like to purchase things when you're on a trip, it kind of like have some memories or emotional attachment to it. And it's nice to put all this information in your database because it really helps later on when we do the analysis to find out what you really liked about collecting and what are you actually collecting and why is it important to you. So this kind of information is useful. Okay, the next column is currency. The currency that you bought the watch in. You can populate that by typing over here. Okay, so if it's already input, you type there, it goes down and then search for, let's say, US dollar. It'll come up. But let's say if I put JPY, which is like Japanese yen, and you can see the option below, it says create a new option, name JPY. So if I click down here, I will create another option for choosing JPY, Japanese yen, in the future. And price is pretty straightforward. It's up to you if you want to do decimal points. You could do that as well. I just round it up to the next dollar or next euro. Purchase date, this is important because we want to track how many watches you purchase within a month and within the year. And we also want to see how far apart are they or how close are they. If I see things like I purchased maybe 3 times or even 2 times within the week, one after another, right? Or maybe I bought something Sunday, Friday, I went out and I bought something again. So that would be kind of like a flag for me. Usually if that happens, it's a sign that I'm buying impulsively. I'm not really thinking about it. Sometimes I went out and I bought 2 watches on the same day or 2 watches in the same shop in the same day. That happens. And I also want to know how often does it happen? Because in my mind, after I did the purchase, I probably just forgot about it, right? So the next column, the next field is item type. Item type is quite important and interesting. So it's linked to another table with the same name, item type. And I could do it in two ways. I could either go here and then hit the plus when I try to add tags to each item, whatever it is, to describe the item. It's either it's a quartz watch, solar power, as accessories. It's not a watch. It's a dive watch. It's a watch with the LCD display, or it's a luxury watch. Whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. I can use the same method. I could type to search for it. If it's not there, I could add a new record. That is fine. Or I could go to the table and I could actually populate them over here on the first column. And just to keep in mind, the asset column is automatic. You don't have to touch it. So I've already input a few things, and you can see immediately if I go to here, I could look at, automatic watches. There are 4 assets, meaning 4 records, 4 pieces. And I add another column here with the count option, and it counts from the assets column. So immediately I could tell, okay, I have 4 automatic watches. I have 3 quartz, and I have only 1 dive watch, so forth and so on. So this place is actually very convenient for me. I don't have to do any filters. I don't have to do any sorting of any kind. I just come here. I could tell what kind of watch I was buying. And obviously these are overlap. It could be automatic and at the same time it's a dive watch. So, and you can actually tell like the records have the same ID, the same asset tag. So these column, if you want to have at the bottom, you can have different functions. Like you can add them up, do an average, this and that. And the sum doesn't make a lot of sense because these are all overlapping. So I might as well just disable it. And it's handy for the other tables as well. I could go to manufacturers and I go to vendors and I see similar things. Okay, and it's up to you what kind of columns do you want to add for them. Such as for the manufacturer, this is the place where it makes sense when we separate the currencies. So I add another column, which is a lookup with the lookup functions. And what does it do? It go to the assets. It looks up the price, and you can put a condition below. So here I put where currency is USD. See that? Where the currency is USD. So all the watches that I paid in US dollars would be in this column. So now at the bottom, if I want to sum that up, that makes sense, right? In the main table, if I sum this column up, it would not make sense because some of these are in different currencies. Okay, so an alternative would be, you can say, oh, Joe, this is too complicated. I don't want to deal with currencies and this and that. I just want to deal with, let's say I use my credit card anyways, right? So even if I bought it in Europe, I use my credit card and at the end, I'm still paying in US dollars. So you can actually go back and dig up your credit card statement and put the actual total you pay in dollars in this column. So, or you can hide it, right? You can right click and then see hide, you can hide this column and you don't have to deal with the currencies. The reason I deal with the currencies is because it doesn't show in this example, but I like to travel to Japan before the pandemic, and I usually would buy a watch, not an expensive one. I like to buy it to take that as a souvenir, and then I like the watches with the Japanese calendar, and you can only do that cheaply when you buy in Japan. So I like to put that in the Japanese currency. So when I look at it, it immediately reminds me about, oh, this is from a trip and I bought it in Japan. I remember the Japanese price and I put that in yen. And that actually creates like emotional connection between me and that watch I bought because of that trip. And of course, I would enjoy that watch as well because there's something special about it. And I did not just go to the shop and then just randomly pick a watch and buy it, even though sometimes it feels that way. But I asked myself that question again and again after I did the purchase. I actually like the watch because I still wear it from time to time. I wear it in a rotation fashion. I did not just lock it away or just toss it in my drawer and I never look at it again. So there is some advantage if you put that into a foreign currency. If you actually purchase the watch, even from online, went to Amazon Japan website and I bought a watch over there, it's something different. Okay, back to the columns. So I have item type, and remember, this is not a single select. And you can see from some entries, I could put automatic, and I also put a dive watch. It's a quartz, and it also has a LCD display. And anything that makes sense to you, go ahead and put it there. Maybe LCD doesn't make sense to you. You don't care if the watch has an LCD display or not. For me, it makes a difference because there are quartz watches that is analog watches like a G-Shock. It has LCD display. So it makes a distinction for me. I want to keep track if I am buying more digital display watches, LCD display watches, or am I buying more analog watches? Even though I have some idea in my mind, I just want to see it. Manufacturer, this is linked to the manufacturer table that I showed earlier. And this one, even though it's linked to a table, but I would say it's pretty much like almost like a single select, but I would still prefer to have it linked to a table. And vendor is also the same. You only purchase from one vendor. Why do I care about vendors, the shop? And sometimes I just maybe I have a connection with the shop and I know somebody there over the years, and there are some places I spend more money than others. It's just one way to look at like how many watches you purchase from some one shop. Manufacturers is per brand. So you can see what is your favorite brand. The top one and top two is easy to guess, but I would say like the after number three, like the 4, 5, and 6, it will surprise you. You go back and like, wow, I didn't realize I bought so many Seikos, for example, or I bought so many Citizens, because you don't keep track of those things sometimes, and they do add up. Let me tell you, they do add up. It's always the most expensive pieces you bought, you will remember them. Maybe the birthday gifts and the anniversary gifts, or the gifts you buy for yourself when you get a big bonus, you will remember those. And the surprise, at least in my case, is I thought that would be the biggest bowl of the collection, like money wise, but it turns out it may not be true. I count and I add up all the other second, I call it second tier or third tier brands that I bought over time, they actually add up, especially if I do a lot of compulsive purchases. I don't remember a lot of those. I just remember I bought the watch and I think about it. I would remember, oh yeah, I have this watch. I have that watch. I will remember those. And I would even wear a lot of them on the rotation. It's the total number that surprised me, and also the total amount of money that I spend on all these how should I say it, the less expensive pieces, and also the prices are not that high. Usually they are just like at the point that I feel comfortable buying without really thinking about it. I think a lot of people who have a collecting hobby, they would have some experience like this. Some brands are really good at making products like that. For example, I think for a few years, I used to buy a lot of stickers. They price it just, let's say, around $100 or $120 or a little bit less than that with some discount or something. You walk in the store and you look at them and you just want to buy, oh, this color looks really cool. And you don't think about it too much because the price is kind of flying under the radar. You you don't really think about that much, and then you walk out with the shoes, right? Just and then maybe a week later you forgot about the purchase you made the previous week, and you see something else, and then you do the same thing because, oh yeah, it's $100. Yeah, I can afford that, and this looks really cool, and I buy it. It's the total of those purchases that add up, and it always got me. Like I look at it as like, wow, I actually spend quite a bit of money on all these shoes. So it's not the quantity, it's just the total sum versus the big purchases. Yeah. And I would not know that until I look at the total like this in a very presentable way. And one of the main reasons that we do this database. Anyways, just look at these columns and I see in different currencies. If I have more, I could add more. And then at the bottom, you see the total you spend on each currencies. And if you want to add those up, you can add those up too. This column is count. I count how many watches I purchased under each brand. This one, I just kind of did it for fun. This next column, I was gonna name it something different. It's an experiment on finding the expensive pieces. So I do the lookup function. The target is the asset table. I mean the asset view, and then the price. And then the condition is if the price is over $500. So I'm trying to fish out the expensive pieces. How many do I have? And I could do the next column is the roll up. The roll up is just having the sum of all the prices. So for example, on this one is I bought a watch from Unimatic, and then also a strap. So the prices are listed here. There are 2 items total, and the luxury items over $500, right? So this one is $525. I have one over here. Actually, I should put another condition over here. I could also add like where currency equals to euro. And then a different column would be where the currency equals to dollars. The roll up would be a total of these two. So it's 525 plus 35 would be 560. So that's how I use this manufacturer table. Payment, it's totally optional. You could put, I use cash, I use credit card, I use financing, and notes is the place I type in a short paragraph about this purchase. Usually I would say something like this. This watch, let me just pick one. Okay, let's just pretend we're doing the first one. The first one is a Swatch 1983 model. It's the model name. It's not really made in 1983. It's a reissue of a watch that they made in 1983, and it's called AM51. I would say something like I saw this watch on the news, and I thought it was interesting. Swatch came out in 1983, and this is the watch model that they first made back in the day. And I think it's kind of significant as a watch for this watch brand, because this is the first watch they made, and it looks very interesting, simple but interesting, and it pretty much goes with any outfit. And I thought it's a cool watch to own. And also this is automatic watch, the System 51 series automatic watch. It's a very interesting backstory. The whole watch is built by a robot, and all the parts were held together by a single screw at the end. It's not expensive. It's interesting, so I decided to buy, and I bought the black version. So I wrote something like that. Why do I do that? So after I populated the whole list, I would have written a lot of stories. Let's say I have in this table, I have like maybe 25 watches. So I would have written 25 stories about each of the pieces. Some were obviously more interesting to me. It's easier to write. And some maybe I just kind of like, I almost forgot I bought this watch. Or the story is just like I walked by a store one day, and then I saw this in the display window. It's a new watch. It just came out. I thought it was interesting. I got it. Maybe stories like that. I have actually deeper versions of these stories, which I'm gonna talk about when I talk about insights. So the goal for this column, this few notes, is really, can you do a story? Can you tell the story about each of the pieces, and which ones are more interesting to you? There are a lot of interesting stories. If most of them are just like random purchases here and there, then it tells something about you as a collector. And it also tells something about your buying behavior. You may be just spending money here and there. Maybe you're enjoying the shopping more than enjoying the collecting. You just like to buy. You enjoy the feeling that you own something. So do not skip this column, the notes. I know it may take some time, but if you are a true collector, you really like your collection, you're really into watches, I guarantee you this is actually really fun to revisit every single piece that you have. For the photos, you put it on your wrist, take a photo of it, attach it to the record, and then you write a story about it. Why you like it? Why is it interesting to you? Or are there any things happening that day when you buy the watch? So you will enjoy it. You will. Okay, so the next column is kind of optional as well. I just call it miscellaneous. You can call it something else if you like. And this is just to put extra tags on each of the watch. I know on the item type, I had luxury as a tag. It's actually, it goes either way. You can put luxury in here as well, because luxury may not be a feature of the watch. If you disagree, you think luxury is not a feature of the watch, then you can put luxury under miscellaneous. It works in a similar way. You can tag it as a gift, birthday gift, anniversary gift, or a memorial piece because of your job promotion or starting a new job, or having a baby, or whatever happened in your life, you got a watch because of that, or is it a purchase from a trip as a souvenir? You can put all those in there. And it also, when it goes to the inside stage, you go to the miscellaneous table, and you can look at how many pieces in your collection are pieces with special meanings or other things that has meaning in your life. Or is this a quick purchase. You can also put that too. Okay, so the last column I have over here is rating. I kind of talk about it in part 1 that it is almost impossible if you're being honest to yourself, pretty much to have everything 5 stars. Everything is 5 stars. It's really rare. And at the same time, everything is 1 star, 2 star is also rare. It has to be somewhere in between. Most people would put a lot of the pieces 4 or 5 stars, which is a good thing. And there may be some pieces that you regret buying, then those would be like 1 stars, or your taste change over time. I bought it and then maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, I find myself I don't like those kind of watches at all. And that's the beauty of it. You can come back and change your rating anytime. When you go draw insights, you can tell there are a lot of pieces in my collections that I don't like, or I just think that they're average, less than average. Then you will have some idea on how your collecting is going. If you are interested in downsizing your collection, those would be the pieces that you can group together and considering selling them in the future. Yes, this is how you populate the table. So this is the end of part 2. And I will continue and talk about insights in part 3, and I'll see you guys there. Thank you. Bye. How do you start? If you don't have an spreadsheet like I had before, you will be seeing a pile of stuff, right? In this case, like a pile of watches that you have, and it may look stressful at first sight, but it could be joyful at the same time, because a lot of us, the things that we collect, we seldom pull everything like together in one place and just admire them and look at them. Some people do that, but a lot of people, if you collect things for at least for a few years, you will have like stuff stored in different places in the house. Or don't take that as a stressful thing. You can also dig up the past credit card statements just to help you to find the purchase price and the date of each item. And if you're not very organized, now is the time to gather all these things together to be organized, such as the receipts and the credit card receipts, the store receipts, and the warranty. Put that in one place. And there are a couple of ways you can start. You can start with the very first batch of watch that you collect, from the oldest to the newest, or you can flip the other way around. Start with the newest watch, newest purchase, and then work your way backwards. It doesn't matter in the database, as long as you put in the correct date and then you have a unique ID for each. I think you can easily sort them in any way you like to see. So I tried a couple of ways. Since I have a spreadsheet from before, I started from the oldest purchase first, and then I slowly copy them and then paste them on Airtable. But I think it's also not a very bad idea if you start with the newest and just work your way to the oldest purchase, and then don't take that as a tiring chore. It's not like that. Appreciate your time. You're taking time to interact with your collection again. You are spending time with each piece. Appreciate each one of them. And it's not about the deadline. I don't want to give you guys a deadline. You could do maybe 30 pieces, 40 pieces per weekend. And if you're not finished, continue the next weekend until you finish. And usually it won't take a long time unless you have thousands and thousands of pieces. Normally for things like watches, they don't tend to go to that kind of number. Okay. There's a third way as well. You can also start with your centerpieces. There are maybe some of the more memorable pieces that you purchase, or there are pieces that you have a strong connection to. Like, oh, let's say these 10 watches are like my absolute favorite. So start with your absolute favorite, right? Put that in the database first. You'll be very happy to admire your own collection, and then work your way down to at the end, there may be some pieces you totally regret buying, and then maybe at that time you already made up your mind you want to sell them, or you want to do something about them and don't even want to put them on the database. Anyway, I still encourage you to put everything on the database Don't skip something just because you don't like them.